Imagine stepping into your pristine, very thoroughly modern bathroom. You know, you've got those sleek, frosted glass shower doors.
Right, totally modern.
Yeah, but sitting right there, dead center in the bottom of the tub, is a cherry red, like hard water stained shower curtain ring.
Which is weird because you don't even own a shower curtain.
Exactly. And then the mirror fogs up and someone writes, "You look fabulous," from the inside of the glass.
Oh, man.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring a scenario that completely shatters the boundaries between the living, the dead, and, well, the simply displaced.
It is such a mind-bending story.
It really is. For you listening, we've gathered a fascinating stack of excerpts from Hess's novel, Shake Out the Ghosts. The story centers on two people occupying the exact same apartment in the artist's district of a place called Lemon Disco.
But there's a massive catch.
Right. They are separated by 3 entire years, and they each think the other person is a ghost.
It's just a brilliant subversion of the traditional ghost story. I mean, our mission for this deep dive is to explore the mechanics of this time-slip mystery, but more importantly, to unpack how the author uses these supernatural sci-fi elements to examine something deeply human.
Yeah, the human element is huge here.
We are really looking at how trauma, anxiety, and the past can literally and metaphorically haunt us.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we get into the wild, physics-breaking anomalies, we need to establish the baseline reality for our two main characters, right?
Absolutely. Their internal emotional states are the fuel for literally everything that happens in that shared physical space.
So let's start with Micah in the present day.
Yeah.
His reality is defined by just absolute isolation.
Total isolation.
The source material reveals he's a talented painter, but he survived a brutal physical assault right in his own studio. It left him with permanent scars across his cheekbone and eyebrow, and this paralyzed, dilated pupil.
And because of that trauma, he has developed severe agoraphobia. I mean, he cannot tolerate strangers at all.
The psychological toll there is just immense.
It really is. Trauma strips away our sense of safety in this unpredictable world. So Micah, he shrinks his world down to a single apartment where he can control all the variables.
Right, but human beings are inherently social creatures.
Yeah, we can't just switch that off. So the isolation creates a vacuum. And his coping mechanism for filling that vacuum is truly fascinating.
I was so surprised by this part.
He needs connection, but the physical presence of anyone, even like a maintenance worker, sends him into a paralyzing panic attack.
And his solution to that is incredibly specific. The sources mention he spends a small fortune calling a premium sex hotline.
Yeah, but not for the reasons you'd think.
Exactly. I found this detail so wild. He's not calling for arousal or fantasy at all. What exactly is he getting out of these calls?
Well, he is buying controlled, risk-free intimacy. Micah explicitly asks the operators to drop their erotic scripts completely.
They just want to talk.
Right. He pays like $3.89 a minute just to have them describe their actual real bodies over the phone. Yeah, like their scars, their weight, their asymmetrical features. And he sits at his drafting table and he sketches them.
That's amazing. As an artist who used to draw from live models, this hotline is literally a lifeline for him.
It totally is. It allows him to experience human vulnerability and connection, specifically with this one operator named Daryl, while remaining completely anonymous and physically untouched.
So he's essentially purchasing a simulation of the outside world that he can just turn off the second he feels overwhelmed.
Exactly. He has total control.
Now, if we look 3 years into the past, we meet the previous tenant of the apartment, Cosmo. And he's a flamboyant, vibrant, mixed media sculptor.
The complete opposite of Micah, at least on paper.
Right. On paper, his life looks so different. He works at the prestigious Identical Dog Gallery. He's constantly out at parties. So how does a guy who is that physically present in the world fit into a narrative about deep isolation?
Because there is a profound difference between being physically social and being emotionally free. Cosmo is entirely trapped.
In his relationship, right?
Yeah. He is caught in this suffocating cycle of domestic toxicity with his ex-boyfriend, Zed.
Oh, Zed.
I know, right? Zed is the lead singer of a punk rock band called Snake Milk. And he's the kind of highly volatile partner who will impulsively tattoo Cosmo's name on his arm.
Oh my gosh. Wrapped in cling film?
Yes. Wrapped in cling film, just to prove his undying devotion and then immediately go and cheat on him.
It's so messed up.
It is. So Cosmo is surrounded by people, yet he is emotionally marooned.
The sources actually mention Cosmo literally tells his best friend that going back to Zed is a form of self-harm.
Yeah, he knows it's destroying him.
I was thinking about this, and I want to try out an analogy for you listening. Think of trauma like a bad roommate,
Okay, like this.
but not just a roommate who, leaves dirty dishes around.
Yeah.
Think of a roommate who actively rewires the electricity in your house.
Oh.
Right. Every time you try to turn on a light to see clearly, they short-circuit the breaker, keeping you in the dark. Micah and Cosmo's brains are short-circuiting so violently that they're basically blowing out the temporal fuses of the apartment.
What's fascinating here is that long before they ever start transmitting across time, both of these characters are effectively haunting themselves.
Yeah, they really are.
They are ghosts in their own lives, completely disconnected from the present moment. I mean, Cosmo is so desperate to escape his cycle with Zed that he decides to metaphorically kill off his old identity.
He goes to extremes.
He does. He actually plans his own funeral party, complete with an obituary just to force a rebirth.
And Micah is literally burying the remnants of his past life in his closet.
Oh, the banana statue.
Yes. There's this incredible detail where Micah's brother gives him a ceramic replica of Maurizio Cattelan's famous comedian artwork. You know, the absurd banana duct tape to a wall.
Yeah, of course.
He gives it to him to replace one that was destroyed during Micah's assault. But Micah can't even look at it.
It's too much.
Exactly. The absurdity of the art doesn't bring him joy anymore. It just triggers the memory of the violence. So he literally screws it into the back wall of a dark closet and barricades it with boxes.
That action speaks volumes. When you bury your triggers instead of processing them, you turn your own home into a graveyard.
That is such a good way to put it.
So you have two individuals separated by 3 years, occupying the exact same physical coordinates, and both are generating a massive amount of suppressed emotional distress. It's an environment practically begging for a rupture.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of this two-way mirror. The supernatural evidence starts bleeding through, and from Micah's present-day perspective, his apartment just starts acting incredibly bizarre.
Yeah, the weird stuff starts happening.
At 2 a.m., he's suddenly blasted with heady 80s synth pop. We are talking soft cell songs like Tainted Love and Desperate just thumping through his floorboard.
And he just assumes he has a terrible, noisy neighbor.
Right, which is fair. But auditory hallucinations are easy to brush off. The narrative really escalates by introducing physical impossibilities.
Like the shower curtain ring.
Yes, the cherry red shower curtain ring I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Micah finds this hard water stain ring sitting in his modern tub, which, again, has frosted glass doors. There is literally nothing for a curtain to hang from.
So out of place.
He actually texts his landlady, Samina, about it, and she confirms that the previous tenant, Cosmo, did indeed have a shower curtain. But the glass doors were installed after Cosmo supposedly died.
So this object shouldn't even exist in Micah's reality.
Exactly, and the phenomena become increasingly interactive from there. Following a shattered bathroom mirror that gets replaced, direct communication begins.
Well, this is where it gets spooky.
Messages start appearing on the glass in mint green marker. Michael walks into his bathroom and sees, "Everything will be okay," written in block letters.
And then another one, right.
Yeah, later, another message appears. "You look fabulous." So Micah, assuming he's dealing with a very cheeky, supportive spirit, takes a dry erase marker and writes back, "And what do you look like?"
Now, to fully appreciate the dramatic irony for you listening, we have to view this from Cosmo's timeline 3 years prior.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
Cosmo is the one writing those initial green marker messages, but he is writing them to himself.
He's just trying to pump himself up.
Right. He's trying to manufacture his own words of encouragement after another exhausting fight with Zed. So imagine his absolute shock when mysterious handwriting appears underneath his own, asking, "And what do you look like?"
He must have freaked out.
He doesn't even think it's a ghost at first. He assumes his toxic ex, Zed, has broken into his apartment to play elaborate gaslighting mind games.
Which honestly makes sense given how awful Zed is. But it all builds to this terrifying visual climax. Micah decides to record the mirror on his phone, hoping to catch the ghost in the act.
And he actually gets something.
Yeah. Suddenly, Cosmo materializes in the glass. The source material describes him leaning out of a frantically roiling mist, his torso just terminating into the fog.
But in Cosmo's timeline, he's just putting on blush pink lipstick and leaning in to kiss the mirror.
Right. And Micah reaches out, and his solid hand actually grazes Cosmo's warm, bare shoulder.
That moment of physical contact completely breaches the divide between the years.
It totally shatters it. Cosmo turns around, sees this scarred, bespectacled man standing in his bathroom, lets out a blood-curdling scream, and drops his tube of lipstick.
The panic is real.
But here's the crazy part. The lipstick hits the floor, rolls into the hall, and stays there.
Yeah.
In Micah's present day.
It crosses over.
Now, I have to push back on the physics of this for a second. If we are dealing with a haunting, with mist and fog and ethereal spirits, how does a dropped tube of lipstick remain a solid physical object on Micah's drafting table 3 years in the future?
It's a great question.
Right. Is this actually a ghost story, or are we dealing with a tear in the fabric of space-time?
Well, the author is definitely bending traditional supernatural rules to serve a thematic purpose here. We aren't looking at a traditional haunting at all. We are looking at a time slip fueled entirely by emotional resonance.
Okay, emotional resonance.
Yeah, the bathroom mirror acts as a temporal threshold. And notice that the objects passing through, like the lipstick, the curtain ring, they are not random detritus.
What do you mean? They seem pretty random.
They represent moments of acute emotional volatility. That curtain ring didn't just casually fall off a rod, it was ripped down violently by Cosmo during a terrifying moment when he slipped in the tub because he heard a scream echoing from the future.
Oh, wow.
And the lipstick was dropped in a moment of sheer existential terror when a hand from the future touched his shoulder. These objects are physical manifestations of panic.
That makes so much sense.
They act as anchors, bridging the 3-year gap because their pain is vibrating at the exact same frequency. The timeline basically folds in on itself when their emotional states align.
Okay, yeah. Because their anxiety is so perfectly mirrored, they literally transmit across time.
Exactly.
But because neither Micah nor Cosmo understands the temporal astrophysics of their situation, they both seek outside intervention. They assume they are dealing with dark spirits.
Which is a totally natural assumption.
And that introduces us to Déjà, who is easily the most fascinating secondary character in this whole puzzle.
Fascinating, and also deeply ironic in her role.
Yes, exactly. She is a medium and artist who paints what she calls ghost picnics, which are these macabre still lifes of organs resting on picnic blankets.
Such a wild concept.
It really is. And she claims to read auras. Micah actually gets referred to her by Daryl, his favorite hotline operator. So Micah hires Déjà to come cleanse his apartment and evict this entity.
The details of this cleansing scene are critical because they highlight the stark difference between what Déjà expects to find and what she actually senses.
She goes all out, too.
She arrives dressed in platform heels with little faux goldfish inside them, grinds up sage and lavender, and meticulously sweeps through Micah's entire apartment.
But she comes up empty.
Right. She tells Micah that the typical crushing, suffocating atmospheric pressure of an agitated, rowdy spirit is just completely absent.
Instead, she turns her attention to Micah. She reads his aura and tells him it's murky red and black, representing deep, unresolved anger, anxiety, and grief.
She's reading his trauma.
Yeah. She looks at this traumatized, agoraphobic man and confidently diagnoses him as the ghost haunting his own life. She theorizes that his own negative psychic energy is so dense that it's manifesting these poltergeist anomalies.
Which is a heavy thing to hear.
But I call a timeout here. I understand the psychological weight of what she's saying, but practically speaking, she's Cosmo's best friend.
Yep.
3 years ago, she was the one helping Cosmo plan his bizarre funeral. How does a supposedly gifted medium walk into a room dripping with a temporal residue of her deceased best friend and completely miss it? Is she just a fraud?
It's easy to dismiss her as a fraud, but I think the source material is pointing to something much more nuanced about human perception. Déjà isn't necessarily a fraud, she's a victim of proximity.
Interesting.
We are notoriously bad at recognizing the pain of the people closest to us because we are too entangled in it. By misdiagnosing the situation and blaming Micah's own trauma, she inadvertently delivers a profound psychological truth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. She leaves Micah a protective sachet containing a piece of rainbow obsidian to help heal his trauma, utterly oblivious to the fact that the phantom Micah's dealing with is her best friend from the past.
The irony is so thick.
Is Déja's failure as a medium actually a deliberate commentary on how desperately we want to externalize our problems?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, absolutely. Think about it. We always want a ghost.
We want something to point a finger at.
Right. We want a demon to exorcise, an external entity to blame for the things going bump in the night of our own minds. If the house is haunted, you can move. Or you can hire someone like Déjà to burn sage and fix it.
But if you are haunted...
If you are haunted, the work is entirely on you. By telling Micah that he is the source of the haunting, Déjà accidentally strips away his excuse. Her misdiagnosis forces Micah to finally take ownership of his healing instead of outsourcing it to a ghost eviction.
It totally forces his hand. He takes that rainbow obsidian, puts it under his pillow, and for the first time since his assault, he starts to feel a tiny, fragile sense of agency.
It's the placebo effect in action.
Yeah, but a placebo only works if you actually swallow the pill, you know? But a placebo crystal isn't enough to actually cure severe agoraphobia. What was the physical catalyst that actually got Micah out the door?
To find that, we have to trace the artifacts left behind by the absolute worst night of Cosmo's life. We have to look at the climax of Cosmo's timeline.
The funeral party on Cherry Lane.
Yeah.
Cosmo actually goes through with it. He hosts his own metaphorical funeral at an abandoned church, and the aesthetics are intensely dramatic.
Very on brand for him.
Very. He wears a waist-length black veil. His mother decorates the ruined church with metallic Halloween garland and crying skull votives. There's a synth-pop keyboardist playing Tainted Love. Friends are dropping little notes of affirmation into a cremation urn.
On one level, it's a beautiful, desperate attempt by a community to support someone trying to shed a toxic past.
But you cannot simply throw a theatrical party to banish your demons if you haven't dealt with the root cause in reality.
And the root cause inevitably crashes the party.
Zed shows up. He arrives at the abandoned church, wearing a suit, looking like a prom nightmare, demanding his right to pay his respects to the relationship.
It goes bad so fast.
A massive altercation breaks out. Déjà finally unloads on Zed, calling him an unfaithful malignancy right to his face. Zed retaliates by shoving her into the dirt.
And then Cosmo steps in.
Yeah, Cosmo punches Zed in the jaw, and then Zed completely snaps. He grabs the black veil wrapped around Cosmo's neck and starts literally choking him with it, dragging him into the dirt and trying to force a violent, bloody kiss on him.
It is a terrifying escalation. The emotional abuse that has been bubbling under the surface for years finally erupts into lethal physical violence. It proves Déjà Right Zed is an active threat to Cosmo's existence.
And Cosmo is only saved because his boss, Royce the gallery director, steps in. Royce kicks Zed in the back, sending him tumbling into an open, shallow grave that was dug purely for the party's aesthetic.
Poetic justice.
Seriously, Royce threatens to kill Zed if he ever comes near Cosmo again. That violent rupture is the definitive end of Cosmo's old life.
And that rupture leaves physical markers in the real world. Those markers become the anchor that pulls Micah out of his apartment 3 years later.
Yes. Propelled by a midnight conversation with the ghost through the glass where they both promise to try and move forward, Micah finally breaches his front door.
Such a huge moment.
He walks outside, he goes to the local coffee shop, the 7th circle of Java, and successfully buys muffins, even bantering with the cashier. It's a massive victory.
And then he takes a road trip.
Then he gets in his car and drives out to Cherry Lane, seeking closure. He wants to pay his respects at Cosmo's grave.
Because Simina, the landlady, had casually mentioned to Micah earlier that Cosmo died.
And Micah, being so isolated and lonely, has deeply romanticized this tragic, beautiful ghost in his mirror.
So he arrives at the abandoned church.
Right. He finds the faded remnants of the party trash from 3 years ago, like Halloween garlands still flapping in the breeze. And behind the church, sticking out of the overgrown weeds, he finds a weathered wooden cross.
This is the turning point.
He pulls it up, and written on the back inside a drawn heart are 2 names, Déjà plus Cosmo.
This is the exact moment the narrative pivot happens. The illusion of the ghost story shatters completely.
Micah takes a picture of the cross and emails it to Déjà, assuming her friend was murdered, possibly by the same person who assaulted him. But Déjà responds with an absolute bombshell.
What does she say?
She replies, Cosmo isn't dead, he is very much alive, and he's currently posting on his flashbulb social media account.
And here is where we have to unravel the temporal physics of this time slip paradox for you listening. Think carefully about the sequence of events.
Okay, lay it out for us.
3 years ago, Cosmo is in his bathroom putting on lipstick. He looks in the mirror, and standing behind him is a man with a scarred face and a paralyzed pupil. Cosmo screams, runs out, and tells Zed he just saw a ghost.
Oh man, I see where this is going.
Micah's brutal assault, the specific event that gave him those exact facial scars, only happened 9 months ago in the present day.
Oh wow.
So when Cosmo looked in the mirror 3 years ago, he wasn't seeing a ghost of the past. He was seeing a ghost of the future. He was seeing Micah exactly as he exists right now.
That is brilliant. The timeline was a closed loop of mutual haunting.
Exactly.
It wasn't a haunting at all. It was a distress signal echoing backward and forward in time. So Micah immediately pulls up Cosmo's flashbulb account. He sees pictures of this stunning, vibrant 30-year-old artist wearing hot pants, dropping flirty replies to thousands of admirers.
And the insecurity hits him.
Crushing insecurity. How can he, a scarred, recovering, agoraphobic guy who can barely leave his house, ever hold a candle to that kind of vibrant life? He calls his brother, Everett, to vent.
But Everett is having none of it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Everett doesn't indulge the insecurity. He's just thrilled that his brother went outside and is actually crushing on a real, live, breathing human being. Everett tells him to go to the gallery and sweep him off his feet.
Which sets the stage for the final, inevitable collision of the timelines in physical space.
Yes. Micah drives down to the identical dog gallery where Cosmo still works. He is holding this beautiful, vibrant bouquet of roses that he originally picked to put on Cosmo's grave. The sun is setting, casting this champagne pink light over the sidewalk.
Very cinematic.
Cosmo walks out of the gallery. Micah steps directly into his path, and Cosmo screams in absolute terror.
Because from Cosmo's perspective, the terrifying, scarred phantom that stalked his apartment 3 years ago has just manifested on the sidewalk in broad daylight.
Cosmo literally asks him, "Am I supposed to be dead? Did I miss my window, and you're here to push me in front of a bus?"
It is hilarious, but also so incredibly poignant.
It really is. Micah is completely flustered, standing there holding these grave roses, desperately trying to explain that he isn't a harbinger of death. He just lives in Cosmo's old apartment.
This raises an important question. How do they possibly reconcile the temporal impossibility they've both vividly experienced?
They sort it out right there on the sidewalk through hard evidence. Micah pulls up a news article on his phone about his assault, showing the date January of this current year.
And it clicks for Cosmo.
Cosmo looks at the date and realizes that the ghost he saw 3 years ago was wearing scars from an attack that hadn't even happened yet in his timeline. The relief washes over both of them.
It must have been massive.
They finally understand they aren't separated by life and death. They were just separated by the bizarre, supernatural mechanics of their own trauma reaching through time.
And the deep, intimate connection they forged across that temporal void remains entirely intact.
It really does. Micah is still intimidated by how gorgeous and outgoing Cosmo is, but Cosmo looks closely at Micah's paralyzed pupil and tells him it gives him a unique allure, comparing him to David Bowie.
Ah.
He calls him a bicon and says he finds it incredibly sexy. They agree to go get drinks and dinner at a bistro down the street. It's the perfect hopeful resolution.
It really is a great ending.
But looking at the mechanics of it all, it makes you consider, did the universe or the apartment or whatever supernatural force was at play connect them precisely because their individual traumas required a temporal mirror to help them heal?
It's a really interesting thought.
Right, Cosmo desperately needed to see a literal ghost to shock him out of his toxic cycle with Zed. And Micah needed a charming, vibrant voice from the past to coax him out of his locked studio.
It's a compelling theory of temporal physics driven by psychology. Trauma creates a specific resonance. When two people hit the exact same frequency of despair in the exact same physical space, perhaps the fabric of time just wears thin enough for them to pull each other through the wreckage.
So what does this all mean? When we synthesize all these sources, this isn't just a clever sci-fi story about a haunted bathroom mirror and heavy synth pop.
Not at all.
It is a profound exploration of how trauma displaces us from our own lives. It makes us feel like ghosts in our own homes, entirely disconnected from the people we used to be, and inaccessible to the people around us.
Yeah, that isolation is the real ghost.
Micah and Cosmo were entirely isolated by their pain. They had to literally reach across the boundaries of time, dropping physical anchors like a tube of lipstick or a shower curtain ring to pull each other back into the land of the living.
And while you, the listener, might not have a magical medicine cabinet that connects you to the future or past tenants of your apartment, the psychological metaphor really holds true.
It does.
We all have ghosts. We have past versions of ourselves, past traumas, past toxic relationships like Zed that we allow to occupy our headspace. We let them keep us up at night, short-circuiting our present reality.
We let them rewire the house.
Exactly. The real challenge is recognizing when we are haunting ourselves and finding the courage to step out the front door anyway.
Exactly. You had to stop playing the same old record and write a new song. Which leaves me with a final lingering question for you to ponder long after this deep dive ends.
Ooh, let's hear it.
We talked heavily about how Cosmo wrote messages to himself on the mirror just to survive his darkest days. If you could look into a mirror right now and the fog cleared to reveal a version of yourself from 3 years in the future, what message do you think they would write to you on the glass?
That's a deep one.
And more importantly, would you have the courage to pick up a marker and write back?